Well, good morning and welcome to Still Up with 6, where the conversation continues on all your social media platforms. There has been a lot of changes since we last checked in with you guys about 24 hours ago. We do want to say good morning to Chris before we jump into everything that has changed. Good morning, Chris.
Hey there, good morning to you, Heidi. Yeah, certainly a lot has changed since yesterday, as we say every single morning, because things change by the day with what's going on right now. But yeah, let's dive right into it. We're getting a number of people joining us still, as it's a little early on here in the live stream. Already getting some comments this morning. Good morning to you, Thomas, and good morning to you, Jim. Yeah, Jim, you're referencing a story that was in our newscast this morning as well. We'll get into that in a second. But Heidi, let's talk about the changes right now.
Well, the biggest news from yesterday, Governor Abbott actually had a press conference. He's given the green light for more businesses to reopen. Those businesses include barbershops, nail salons, hair salons, and tanning salons. They are all allowed to open if they choose to reopen starting this Friday. This is actually 10 days earlier than when phase 2 was originally supposed to take place. Now, what this means for gyms and what this means for other workout facilities, they have to remain closed, and they can reopen May 18th, which was the original date for when salons were supposed to reopen. So for everyone who's interested in getting a haircut, getting your nails done, you can do so starting this Friday if the business that you go to chooses to open its doors. And of course, that does come with some guidelines. There has to be the governor is recommending that it be an appointment based only, because if you accept walk-ins, they do have to remain 6 feet apart. That's something to keep in mind. Also, stylists and customers are encouraged to wear masks when you're at those facilities and those businesses. So those are the big changes. It's really just a really big change for businesses who've been waiting to reopen and for people who've been waiting to get these services done.
Yeah, absolutely, Heidi. And we still, you know, we got a comment on our Facebook earlier this morning from a hairstylist, from a salon, someone who works at a salon, that said they still thought it was too early. But others are excited to get back to work, and they just insist that they've got the right health guidelines in place to stay safe. I think the idea here is you're cutting down on people waiting around in waiting rooms, people, you know, sitting side by side waiting to get their hair cut or waiting to get their nails done. And the idea is that you're kind of cutting down on the amount of close contact you're having with people. But we talked about this throughout the show, Heidi. Right now, it's just too soon to gauge whether or not this is the right decision. That will not come for another couple of weeks if we start to see more cases coming, or if we don't start to see more cases coming. If we continue to see the flattening of the curve, obviously this was the right time to open. But if we see a spike in cases, there's going to be some people who call into question the governor's decision here.
Yeah, and like you said, it's going to take time for us to really see if this was the right decision as more cases become reported, as more people show symptoms, as more people get tested. And 62%, according to our live poll this morning, which you can still weigh in on using the 6 News app or heading to our website, 62% say yes, they agree with the decision to reopen salons and barbershops at this time, while 38% say no. I can see both sides to this. I can see why it's not a majority saying yes. I can see why people are a little bit hesitant. But also I can see why business owners want to open their doors. If places like Walmart can open, then why can't hair salons and nail salons open? And I think that's the big argument from a lot of people who've weighed in this morning, is that, you know, nail salons and hair salons and barbershops do a pretty good job at keeping things pretty sanitary, even before this pandemic. So I can see both sides to the argument here, but like you said, only time will tell if this is the right decision.
Yeah, Heidi, I think we lost your mic a little bit there, but we've got some links being put into the chat here by our digital producer, giving you some links that'll be very useful for you. I think that it'll be an interesting experiment here in Texas, and I think that's what we really are here in Texas and in Georgia and in certainly some of the other states that are starting to reopen up early, to see if this is the right time to get the economy back on track, because that's what many people are pointing out, is that we can't do this forever. Obviously, this is not a sustainable model. So a lot of people giving now praise to Governor Abbott, saying that this is the right move. But again, we won't see for a couple of weeks whether or not we see more numbers. We have seen a decrease in cases in our local area, which has certainly been very encouraging. and a number of, less and less new cases every single day. That's been encouraging as well. But I think that we're going to have to give it some time to really understand whether or not opening up at this point was the right move. Of course, a lot of people were wondering why it was opened up earlier instead of that May 18th date that we talked about previously for Phase 2. And I think that Governor Abbott is pointing to the number of people who have recovered as opposed to the number of new cases.
Yeah, and that's something to keep in mind, too. We do always want to try and give you guys a silver lining and shine light on the many people who have recovered. And the number of active cases versus the number of total cases, there's a big difference there. So when we report a total case number for a certain county, just know there have been recoveries of whatever number we're giving you. So that's something to keep in mind, and I think that's what the governor is looking at in order to determine what businesses are ready to reopen their doors. And again, some businesses might choose not to, depending on their ability to keep staff there or their ability to maintain that 25% capacity. And that's something we mentioned last week when more businesses were reopening, is that it's up to the business owner to open or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of this is this moral code of trust that we have to understand, that people have to be trusted to be doing the right things, whether that's, wearing a mask and sanitizing when you go to the barber shop, or continuing to wear face coverings in public, even though some of these some of these retail stores and businesses are being able to allowed to be reopened. That doesn't mean we should stop doing the health guidelines that we've been told to do all along, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't also continue to cover our faces, at least until the CDC and the WHO said it's not recommended any longer.
Sam is weighing in, saying, I'm wanting things to get back to normal, but I have an older mother with serious health issues and a weak immune system. So I'm still a bit paranoid myself of bringing something home to her. Sam, that's a good point, and I'm sure you're not the only one who's caring for someone who's an elderly, who may have some health issues, and you fear for that. You have to be extra precautious when it comes to having family members in the same household as you. So I can encourage you to stay home if you can at this time, just to keep your mom safe. And Sam, if you do have to go out and about, remember to sanitize, put on your gloves, and cover your face if you can as well. But like you mentioned, Chris, this is we're one of the very few states in the country that are starting to reopen, and reopen quickly. I mean, you think about dates being pushed up, the governor reopening certain businesses earlier than expected. It is a trial and error, and I think that a lot of states are going to look to us to see how it all plays out. And I think that the governor is doing the best that he can based off the numbers in our state in trying to get the economy back to where it was, and trying to get businesses back open and people back employed and getting a paycheck. That's another thing that we have to remember, is that these businesses are planning to reopen, and that means paychecks for people who have gone months without one. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that I'm having a little trouble hearing you this morning, Heidi, but if you're referring to Sam's comment, I think that's a very poignant and good insight. There are a lot of people that I know that there's the desperation to get back to normal, but there's also the need to protect the most vulnerable among us, and I think that's the concern right now, that even though it seems like this should be the right time to get back to work and get back out there in public, there are people out there that are very vulnerable, and this is a very dangerous disease for them. So certainly a good point from Sam this morning. Cece saying there's so many people that don't cover their faces in public. Yeah, absolutely. It's something we talk about every single day. It's something we discuss, and we remind our viewers to make sure that you are covering your face in public. It's something that not only helps stop the spread, protects you and protects other people, but it's also good for a sense of peace, a sense of peace of mind, to make sure that there are people that are following the guidelines.
And just a reminder to people, because we're starting to reopen the state, it does not mean that things are back to normal. And I think that's another issue that we have, is that people are not covering their face, they're not covering their sanitizing, they're not putting gloves on, because they think just because you're opening your doors, things are back to normal, and they're not. And we have to remember that this is happening in phases, that we still have to practice all of the social distancing guidelines that were once in place.
Yeah, and a good comment there from Sherry. Says she's a salon owner. She can assure you we are having no shortage of clients calling in to get their hair done. We will be taking extra precautions on sanitation to protect both you and our stylists. I want to thank everyone for their support. Sherry, yeah, and we've heard from a lot of salon owners and stylists who say we are doing everything we can to keep everything sanitary, to make sure we cover our faces, to make sure that every single client is amidst the proper health guidelines and that everything is cleaned. And I understand that is protocol even when there's not a pandemic going on. That so many salons and beauty salons and beauty parlors and hairdressers do go out of their way to make sure that everything is sanitized. So we hope that this is the right time to open this, and we hope that everyone starts to get back to getting their haircut. And I know that we've got another comment this morning from a salon owner who said they're booked out for the rest of the month. So certainly there is a high demand for it.
Oh yeah, there is, especially as people are saying they're ready for a haircut, they're ready to get their nails done. Sitting at home for a number of weeks without getting those things that you're used to getting to pamper yourself, to keep yourself feeling hygienic and fresh, it can take a toll on you. So I can see why they're booked out for the rest of the month. But you said it before, I mean, salons do a great job at keeping things sanitary even when there isn't a pandemic. I mean, every salon that I've been to, whether it was for my nails or my hair, every time I go in, they're wiping down the area, they're sanitizing, they're dusting the floor after each and every customer. So shout out to them for doing that even before this pandemic, but I'm sure they're going to step it up even more during this time.
Yeah, and we want to wish the best of luck to all our small business owners, including salons and nail salons and hairdressers and barbers that are getting back into business. We do have to wrap it up here on Still Up with 6. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much for all your comments and all your insight throughout Texas today and here on Still Up with 6. And remember, if you have a question that you want verified, I'm on Facebook, Twitter. You can also send me an email at crogers2@kcentv.com.
Stay safe, everyone. Stay indoors if you can, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning on Texas Today, 4:30 to 7 a.m. And then on Still Up at 6 on all social media platforms. We'll see you tomorrow.